Good evening and welcome everybody to Wednesday Night Live from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for joining us in the midweek. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the country and in the world. Here in Los Angeles, it is raining just a little bit. So we have weather. So we're all kind of freaking out and grabbing our raincoats and umbrellas and wondering if they're going to cancel school and work tomorrow because it's a little bit damp on the streets, but we will survive. Thank you all so much for your well wishes. I hope you guys have had a wonderful few days to start the week. I have. It was a very, very busy Wednesday for me. Jen St. Pierre, thank you so much. Happy Wednesday to you as well. It was a busy Wednesday. I did a lot. I'm probably sleep deprived and a little exhausted, but I'm happy to be here. In fact, I'm juiced. I'm juiced to be here. It's going to be a fantastic show because there's a lot of very interesting things going on, not the least of which is Megan Boswell. The jury is deliberating in that case. We're going to get into what I think. I watched the closing arguments. I was going to go through the closing arguments with you guys, but I decided against that because nothing happened in those closing arguments that I thought was all that groundbreaking, all that tide turning. To me, we're going to go through what I feel is the most pivotal piece of testimony in the entire case and break down what that was and why I feel that way about it and why I think the jurors in this case may be struggling. Jurors on any case struggle, but in this case in particular, why they might be struggling. So, hello to all the new faces and familiar faces, Pammy and Afton and Barbara Bunker and Tracy and Donna. Thank you guys all so much for being here. I appreciate that you guys continue to show up and listen to me chatter on about these cases. We're going to talk about Megan Boswell first. We're going to go through that testimony, and then we're going to run a poll. And if we have time to get into these other cases, I'd like to hear what you guys want to hear about most. So Karen Reed, she had the Supreme Court made a decision on her request to have her case thrown out on double jeopardy grounds. A little more nuanced than that, but we can go through that ruling, talk about why I don't really feel it's all that shocking, but why you guys should understand exactly what went on there. We could talk about Donna Adelson. She's asking for bail. Poor Donna. Poor Donna. She's having a tough time in jail. Jail is not what she was expecting. And jail is rough, and jail has bad food, and jail is loud, and jail is not a place where you sleep well. And she's asking to be let out because of that. And then finally, Shanna Gardner. This is the woman down in Florida who's accused of the ambush killing of her husband, Jared Bredigan, who is a Microsoft executive. That case has a really surprising twist and turn because the reason they were able to put that whole case together is that the actual gunman, it's a murder for hire case, and the actual gunman flipped and said, I will cooperate with the government. I will testify against Shanna and her new husband for what they did and what they hired me to do. And now he might be recanting. He might be saying I'm giving false testimony. And how will that affect the case? So like I said, interesting stuff. That's why I'm juiced to get into it with all of you guys. So we will put that poll up. Take a look after we do Shanna Gardner, Megan Boswell. I'm already getting confused. We'll see what you guys pick first. All right, please, the obligatory hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, join us in the chat. Let's get this going. All right, Megan Boswell. This is the word tragic doesn't even do this case justice. It is beyond tragedy. It is nightmare. It is the kind of stuff that is difficult for me to even fathom and think about. I was watching the closing arguments today, and as I'm watching the closing arguments, I've got my 2-year-old with me, and she's adorable and loving and just constantly wants to be held and wants to be near me. And she's going around the living room, picking up things so that she can show them to me. And I'm sitting here looking at this beautiful little girl thinking, Evelyn didn't have this chance to live a life. She didn't have this chance to be loved like this. She didn't even have a chance to live to be as old as my 2-year-old, because her life was taken in about the most disgusting and brutal way imaginable. And it really bothered me. And believe me, it was not lost on me that moment watching these closing arguments while we're talking about how this little girl, beautiful little girl, lost her life. Her mother, Megan Boswell, who was a very young mother, arguably a child herself when she had her, is accused of wrapping her up in tinfoil and a blanket and is disposing of her upside down inside of a trash can that was later found inside of like an abandoned playhouse on her family's property. And then she went on to give all sorts of conflicting stories to law enforcement and to the media about where little Evelyn was. She's with her father. She's with her grandmother. She's with somebody I don't know. Horrible case. One thing all of us of good-hearted people can agree on is how horrible this is and how no matter how Evelyn met her end, the way that she was disposed of like garbage is beyond evil, okay? But as you guys all know, these cases are about much more than that. When you're putting on a criminal trial, it's about much more than, are we disgusted by this? Are we bothered by this? It becomes a question of legal things like causation and intent. And the central question of this case to me is the when and the how. When did Evelyn die? And how did she die? And I think it was incumbent on the prosecution to prove those two things beyond a reasonable doubt if they want to convict this woman of first-degree murder. In other words, this isn't, are you disgusted with Megan? This isn't, does it break your heart to know what happened to Evelyn? Those aren't the questions in front of the jury. The questions are, how did she meet her end, Evelyn, this baby girl, and when? Probably more importantly, did she meet her end? And in order to prove that, they had to call a medical examiner. And one of the people that was called by the prosecution, by the way, the defense did not put on any witnesses. And we could talk about that if you guys have questions on that. And I thought that was interesting, perhaps strategic, perhaps just they didn't have a choice. But they called Dr. Darinka Malusnik-Polchin. I'm going to pat myself on the back if I got that pronunciation right. Okay, and that's whose testimony we're going to go through now. We're not going to go through the whole thing. We're going to go through her cross-examination. Because if you had to distill this entire case down to one moment, it is the next 10 to 12 minutes of testimony by this doctor, this pathologist, and what she had to say, and more importantly, how she reacted to the defense cross-examinations on this. So let's get into it right now and talk about it. I'm going to make myself smaller so you guys can see. Okay. Let me know if you guys can hear this okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bruce. How are you?
Good afternoon.
My name is Gene Scott. I represent Ms. Boswell. First thing I want to ask you about is you did not conduct this autopsy.
No, I did not.
You had no physical contact with the body of this child. You didn't go to the scene. You simply reviewed what Dr. Schmidt had done. Is that correct?
I reviewed what she did and all the pertaining documentation.
And accordingly, had Dr. Schmidt have made some mistake, it's very possible that could be incorporated into your work as well.
Um, that's a very complex question. I cannot answer yes or no. May I explain?
Sure.
So the point of having an autopsy report is to objectively describe the findings. And then the only subjective part of the autopsy report, the conclusion as to what happened, that's essentially Dr. Schmidt, in this case, conclusion as to what the child died of, cause and manner of death. So the objective findings, such as photograph, tissue sampling, should be part of the description of the case that should not be influenced by one's opinion. Now, my opinion is going to be based on those facts plus the scene investigation. So the question was, if Dr. Schmidt made a mistake, she made objective observations and put them in her report that are corroborated with photography and tissue sampling. So anyone reviewing the case can come up with his or her own conclusion as to cause and manner of death. So if she made some wrong observations that are mismatched with the photographs, autopsy photographs, scene photographs, then I should be able to notice that and comment on that, but I haven't noticed any mismatches. So essentially, her conclusion as to the cause and manner of that is that's her subjective thing. I followed my own kind of line of reasoning and conclusion reviewing based on not just her report, but the scene photographs and autopsy photographs, which are documented for posterity, and anyone can review them and come up with the objective kind of a conclusion as to cause and manner of death. So the short answer would be, if she made mistake with observations, I should be able to identify that in the photographs, and I didn't.
Okay. First off, right off the bat, she's very good. I mean, she's very smart. She's obviously very experienced, very skilled. I mean, you can tell that she's been in court many, many times before from just her demeanor and the way she's answering the questions. That question, long-winded as it may have been, I feel like she knocked it out of the park and established herself with the jurors, even under cross-examination, that she is making her findings based on objectivity, right? That she is going to be an objective, no dog in the fight, go by just the facts and the evidence and what the science tells me about my findings. And that's alone what I will be guided by. And I make that point for what we're going to see later.
Were there photographs of the internal organs?
The photographs of the internal organs were not available. We frequently don't take those during autopsies, but we do sample organs to look under the microscope, and that was done.
Okay. Now, you described this was a diagnosis of exclusion. Can you explain what that means?
So by saying asphyxial deaths are frequently diagnosed exclusion means that we found an individual in a position that prevents breathing, but there is no mark on the body. And I've done thorough investigation. Unlike in this case, there are plenty of marks on the body. But what we say with the diagnostic exclusion, for example, is that if I have a drowning victim and I have absolutely nothing else on the autopsy, no heart attack, no evidence of seizure, no evidence of trauma, no evidence of drugs, well, the only now conclusion is that I excluded everything else, and therefore drowning as a part of the asphyxial death is the cause of that. So that's what I meant by diagnosis of exclusion.
Okay. In this case, as it relates to the medical reasons contained in the autopsy, and I'm not talking about where the child is found at the scene, but the medical conclusions, were you able to come up with a cause of death?
So there was no other reason for this child to be dead because there was no evidence of an infection or tumor or anything like that was identified at the time of the autopsy. And the review of the medical records, which is always mandatory for forensic pathologists to review medical records, birth records, pediatric records, did not indicate that anything was wrong with the child, such as seizures or anything of that sort. So this child had no objective way or reason to be dead. And as I said, the tissues were sampled, and even with decomposition that sets in the organs, if there is some major infection in the body, it would have been identifiable, and it was not there.
What is
Now, did you guys notice that he asked a question, and this is kind of a precursor for where I not trying to bury the lead here, but where I began to feel that this testimony became problematic. I like her. Let me put that this way. I think she's a very good doctor. I think she knows what she's talking about. But where I think this testimony in particular began to have troubles started to develop here. He asked her a question that was a very straightforward question. Could you determine cause of death? Okay. Which, if you think about it, is a yes or no question. Yes, I could. No, I couldn't. Yes, I did. Oh, then tell us what that was. No, I couldn't. Well, tell us why you couldn't. But she instead went on to explain all of the other things about how there was no reason why this child should be dead. An excellent point that will likely become material, but not exactly his question. So already she is starting to go off script, right? As far as the questions he's asking. And he kind of, at this point, is just rolling with that.
sudden infant death syndrome?
Sudden infant death syndrome is actually an abandoned, antiquated term that was used to describe sudden death in a child that essentially had negative autopsy findings and negative scene investigation, which means that we don't use that term anymore. That was antiquated because it was never a syndrome. It always, syndrome means that there is a constellation of symptoms, findings, and signs that would kind of create this entity that one can actually have the reason for this person to be sick or dead, for that matter. So there was never a syndrome. It was never a constellation of findings. What it meant actually is that we didn't find anything at the autopsy. Therefore, it's kind of this SIDS, nebulous diagnosis. Now we actually know with the scene investigation and the advances in our field in forensic pathology that those situations with that is with no findings at the scene or in the autopsy are extremely rare. We call them sudden unexplained death in infancy, or SUDI. So that's a new term that we use. And I can tell you, with the proper investigation, the proper scene investigation, proper autopsy, and proper ancillary studies such as microbiology, histology, toxicology, the rate of those SUDI unexplained deaths is extremely low, actually almost non-existent.
So you're telling me that if another pathologist said this child could die of SIDS, they're just wrong?
Yeah, he's wrong, or she is wrong, because SIDS doesn't exist. SIDS never existed. So if that pathologist is using the term SIDS, that pathologist needs to go back to forensic school.
Probably not competent.
Exist. I'm sorry?
Probably not competent.
If he or she is using SIDS, that's not a competent pathologist. At this day and age, that's not a competent pathologist.
Okay. What did you call it? The new syndrome?
But it's actually not really a syndrome. It's a sudden unexplained death in infancy or unexpected death in infancy. It means that we exhausted all the investigative capacity and thoroughly done autopsy with sampling and ancillary studies, and we found absolutely nothing.
So that's a really interesting and an important point for the defense, right? Is that this, whatever you want to call it, SIDS, fine. SIDS is an antiquated statement. Fine. I won't use my language. We'll use your language. Well, your language is SUDI, sudden unexplained death in infancy. But we're talking about the same thing, right? We're talking about when you have no explanation, when medicine cannot provide us for a reason, when we've explored everything and nothing about the pathology, nothing about the health of the child, nothing about the environment, nothing can explain for us why this infant died. Well, it's sudden, it's unexplained, and it's the death of an infant. And it's this kind of catch-all term for all of that stuff. The point, she made the point, which the prosecution should highlight and did, hopefully effectively, how incredibly rare that is. But his whole point is it is a thing. It is a concept. In other words, we don't live in a world where every death of an infant, every sudden death of an infant will have an explanation, will be able to be medically, scientifically explained, that there is this category, no matter how small, for a catch-all for unexplained instances.
So how do you rule out that this child couldn't have died from a laryngeal spasm?
Because laryngeal spasm needs to have a reason for that to happen. And I've never had a case of a laryngeal spasm in a otherwise healthy child. And laryngeal spasm is basically something that somebody would give a diagnosis or the reason for a child to be dead when they're really trying to kind of come up with stuff and create some new category. That's pretty much it.
Gastroesophageal reflux, that can lead to a laryngeal spasm, can it not?
But that would not.
Yes or no, can it lead to that? And then explain.
That's actually not something that is described in the forensic pathology field. Laryngeal spasm would not necessarily kill a child.
But could it kill a child?
I've never seen it.
Could it?
I've never seen it.
Okay, this is an interesting point here too. He is making a mistake that a lot of attorneys make when they have an expert on the stand and the attorney has learned a little bit about the science that expert is a expert in that field, and they try to talk shop, right? And they try to get into it with them about, well, what about, laryngeal spasms, and what about this and what about that? And if sometimes it's effective if you're using the testimony of another witness and highlighting that for the jury. But if you're just trying to lock horns with this expert, I think it's a very ineffective path to go down, because this woman spent her entire life doing this. You're not going to learn this in a matter of weeks of preparation, no more than she can stand up and start cross-examining a witness, having seen you do it a few times. It's just, you know your lane and stay in it. And when these defense attorneys start to try to get into this talk shop sort of cross-examination, I think it's ineffective. The other thing that happened at this point, though, is she's again starting to have trouble with answering yes or no questions with yes or no.
In Dr. Schmidt's report, she states that the possibility that the decedent was alive when placed in the trash can cannot be excluded.
That's correct. That's what she stated.
Okay. Is that your opinion as well?
I believe she died in the trash can.
Okay. You have no proof to show she was alive when she went in the trash can.
I have all the proofs of her not being able to breathe once put in a trash can.
Doctor, you don't know if she was breathing when she went in the trash can, do you?
She would not be able to breathe no matter what. And as I said, because of the composition, of course, we were a little bit handicapped as far as being able to completely examine all her tissues and organs. But there was no reason for this child to be dead.
Okay. Again, and can you see already that the confidence that she had when she was more comfortable answering questions because she was answering them directly and straightforwardly starts to crack here, and that she's starting to kind of search for answers, and he's just asking a simple question. You cannot tell us for a fact whether or not she was alive when she got put inside of the trash can, okay? Experts are asked these questions all the time. You cannot tell us for a fact. Can you tell us to 100% certainty? Science doesn't deal that way. Most experts will tell you, I cannot tell you with 100% certainty anything. I can give you my opinion that's based upon my observations and the evidence and my experience, that there is very little chance, to the point that I wouldn't ever give that opinion, that that child was alive, if that's her opinion. But when you start getting into these avoiding the yes or no of a question, jurors are picking up on this. And that's kind of my point here, is as much as we are all picking up on it, they're adults too. They are noticing this. They're noticing she doesn't want to answer this question for some reason. And the question we should start asking ourselves is, does that make the jurors start to pay attention to this question and answer more than they would have otherwise?
Other than being in the trash can or being able to breathe.
You can't say conclusively she was alive in the trash can you?
She doesn't have a reason to be dead. And I never had an autopsy on a child older than 1 year old for no reason to be dead, except that she could not breathe in that particular position where she was placed.
Not the question. She doesn't have a reason to be dead. Nobody's disputing that even. No one's disputing that even. He's just asking, fine, the child has died. That's awful. I'm asking you, can you tell us when, to a certainty, it occurred? The child has no reason to be dead. Agreed. Now, when did it occur? Can you tell us that? And that's what she's now, at this point, starting to seem afraid of answering, in my view.
Yes or no? Can you say conclusively that she was alive when she was placed in that trash can?
She could not breathe in the trash can. So that's my main conclusion.
Are you refusing to answer my question, doctor?
No, I'm just saying that the child could not breathe in the trash can.
And I'm asking, if I may, yes or no, can you say conclusively she was alive when she was placed in the trash can?
No, she might have been dead because her foil was on the face before being placed in a trash can. She could have been dead because she was put in a plastic bag before she was placed in a trash can. Obviously, the foil, the bag, 2 bags, the blanket, tightly covering her face would prevent her from breathing. So all of those things had to happen before she was put in a trash can. So all I'm saying is that all those components, could have they actually brought her to brink of being dead before being put in the trash can? Sure. The trash can definitely did not help.
Okay. You can't say conclusively she was alive while she was wrapped in that blanket or tinfoil, can you?
She would have definitely died with a tinfoil and the bag and the blanket. And there was no reason to put all of those things and tightly apply to her face and her body unless she was alive.
You can't say conclusively that she was alive when she was wrapped, yes or no?
All I can say is that she cannot breathe with a foil.
See, this is what's, and you can even pick up on his body language here. This was not a cross that was going well for him before now. Okay. He's up against a superior intellect and mind when it comes to this type of science. I'm not trying to, cast aspersions at him, but he's obviously outgunned in this field. He's, in my view, treading water and just kind of searching around for some sort of branch to cling to. And she starts providing it to him. And this, you can tell, he starts to get into it. His volume starts to come up. He starts to get a little bit more animated, because now he had nothing. Before now, he had nothing. And now he's got, she won't answer. And he's going to turn the cross-examination into that. Into you won't answer. Watch.
Judge, I would ask
the
witness to answer my question, yes or no.
Doctor, you need to answer his questions. He's asking yes or no questions. You can explain afterwards if you want to, if you feel the need to. But you do have to answer his questions directly.
Points scored. Points scored. You get a judge to admonish the witness to answer the question. Points scored. Sorry, but this went from great for the prosecution to now they're having trouble. Answer the question. Just answer the question.
So I'm sorry, what was the question?
You can't say conclusively that that child was alive when it was wrapped in the blanket and when it was wrapped in tinfoil.
I have no reason for this child to be dead.
Yes or no, doctor?
Nobody can tell exactly of the state of her body except that she cannot breathe with the foil and the bag.
Judge,
the
I would
trash can and
ask
the
the
blanket.
court to instruct the witness to answer the question yes or no and then explain.
Again, he's loving this.
I'm not really sure.
I'm not being mean to you. But he's asked you the question, the answer is either yes or no. And I'm instructing you to the best of your ability. Answer yes or no, and then you'll have an opportunity to explain.
For a forensic pathologist, it's hard to answer that question, yes or no, but nobody can guarantee or say with certainty what really happened to this child prior to the foil being put on her face.
So you can't say whether she was alive or dead, can you?
She has no reason to be dead, other than that.
Judge, this witness is being evasive. May we approach?
What a moment, right? What a moment for the defense. This witness is being evasive. This star witness for the prosecution, she won't answer. Your judge, I'm just trying to get my questions done here. All of this. And by the way, he highlighted it in closing. He reminded the jurors of it in closing that all he was trying to do was get some straightforward answers. This cross-examination would have been over 10 minutes ago had she just answered those questions, but instead it's dragging out. And what's starting to develop here is, do we now see an objective witness, or are we starting to see a witness who appears to have a dog in the fight?
All right. Let me see if I can boil this down to the lowest common denominator. He's going to ask you this question one more time. And I understand this case and this situation. But ma'am, I'm telling you, if the answer is not yes or no, you'll be facing contempt of court.
Did you guys hear that? I'm telling you, if the answer is not yes or no, you're going to be facing contempt of court. That I in my experience, have never seen a judge instruct an expert witness in that manner. She's experienced, and I don't know why she fell trap for this.
Can I be more quick?
Yes, sir.
Ask you a question.
Ma'am, yes or no, can you say conclusively that this child was alive or dead when it was placed in the blanket and the tinfoil?
The blanket, tinfoil, the trash can, which one? Okay, the answer is no. She could have been murdered differently.
There we go.
Thank you, doctor.
You see, that's it. That was the end of the cross-examination.
Redirect.
They ended for the day after that. And I found myself being so bothered by this because, well, for a few reasons, but because this shouldn't have been a moment for the defense. It really shouldn't have. This is a prosecution witness. This is a witness they're looking forward to. This is the pathologist. This is somebody squarely in their corner. Somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who shouldn't be advocating, somebody who knows not to fall for these traps. And he got to go out on a high note there. And it was deserved because she allowed him to have it. And that's the part that really began to bother me. I thought she did a fantastic job up until this point. I thought she knew exactly what she's talking about, but what she started to do is she started to show her feelings on this case, I think. I think she started to show that she was answering those questions, am I disgusted by Megan Boswell? And am I heartbroken for what happened to Evelyn Boswell by this case? And those aren't the questions in front of them. The questions in front of the jury that she should have been answering is how and when. And even if that answer is, I cannot tell you, that's fine as long as you don't lose your credibility. Here's the reasons why this was problematic to me. And if you guys think I'm making a big deal out of nothing, perhaps I am. There was a lot more to this case than this moment. But to me, this whole case comes down to whether or not she was alive when she was wrapped in that blanket and that tinfoil and put into the trash can. I mean, even saying those words, I'm disgusted by all of it. If she was alive, this is torture and first-degree murder. Absolutely. If she wasn't alive, then the question becomes, well, what caused her to die? And if that answer is, we don't know, or it could have been an accident, or she could have died for some unexplained reason, anything. And then Megan Boswell wrapped her in tinfoil and a blanket and put her in a trash can. That is disgusting and awful. But what it ain't is first-degree murder. And that's the pivotal question here. This back and forth is the pivotal question of this entire trial. And at this most crucial moment, I don't think this was delivered as well as it could have been for the prosecution. Here's some of the problems when a witness behaves this way. All that your expert has is their credibility. Okay, that's exactly what you're asking an expert to do. I know better. I'm an expert. I know better than anybody in this room about this particular topic. And I'm going to tell you, jurors, how you should view this evidence based upon my expertise. All of that is premised upon my credibility, my education, my background, my experience. I am credible enough that you should believe what I'm saying. And my credibility, part of that, a large part of that, has to do with my objectivity, that I am not just some hired gun, that I am not just bought and paid for by the prosecution, that I am giving my expert opinion based upon and guided solely by the evidence and the facts in the case. And when that starts to crack, that is cutting at the core of what that person is testifying to, their credibility. Second point, this is the pivotal moment in the case to me. Third point, I would do this all the time with witnesses when I was a prosecutor. Not so much the expert witnesses, because I felt like I didn't have to, but certainly with non-expert civilian witnesses, I would tell them, I really don't care about your answers. Okay, like I do care, and we would talk about their testimony and the things that were important and how I would hope that they would express themselves. But I didn't want them to worry that an answer that they gave based upon cross-examination was going to ruin my entire case. In other words, I didn't want them advocating. That's my job. Let me do my job. If they ask you a question and the answer that comes out you feel is hurtful, let it be, and let me clean it up on redirect. My favorite part as a prosecutor was redirect. It was my bread and butter, redirect. When the defense would cross-examine someone and you would feel like they scored all of these points, for the prosecution to be able to come back in there and say, what the defense didn't ask you was such and such. You were just asked yes or no. Can you tell if the baby was dead before she was wrapped? And you said no. Could you tell us more about that? What didn't the defense ask you about that? Could you explain that to us? Could you explain why that's not important to your ultimate conclusions? You can go all day long and just make the defense look like they're the ones hiding the ball instead of the way that I feel like this ended up. Again, maybe I am getting too heated about this whole thing, but to me, this was the point that the prosecution was waiting for in this case. And if there is going to be doubt or questions or things that the jurors struggle with, I think it's going to be moments like this. I think it's, and I don't want to pin everything on this witness. I think she did a great job, but I think it's going to be moments like this. I think it's going to be, they don't know, they can't answer the how and the when. And even when they were asked about it, their own witness seemed like they had an agenda. And that's a problem to me. I don't know. You guys got questions, I'm sure. Melinda says Josh is juiced. Josh is juiced. This bothered me. I don't want to see somebody get away with this. These jurors are in a difficult spot, by the way. I want to take Shy Gal's question here, but this is one other thing I wanted to share. I do not envy these jurors. They are in a tough spot. Here's their choices. Their choices that they either let a brutal, heartless, evil person who murdered their baby get away with murder, or they convict someone who may have, I don't know what, accidentally the child died. The child died for unexplained reasons, and what she's guilty of is hiding that child and lying to police and putting that person away for the rest of their life. Neither one of those seem like the easiest choices in the entire world. And it would be a lot easier if there was an answer to the how and when. But without an answer to the how and when, they're going to have to rely upon a lot of other circumstantial evidence. And I'm not saying that it's not there. I think it is there. But these jurors have a difficult job in front of them. And that's something I don't envy. Not again. I think that the prosecution put it over the line. But if there's going to be a question that I guarantee you what the jurors, one of the things they're talking about is this testimony back there. Shy Gal says, if the medical examiner is unable to be 100% objective after seeing all of that, how can the juror be? I absolutely could not be. I mean, that's kind of my point, is that I would have loved, if I were the prosecutor in this case, I would have loved the medical examiner to, he's getting all riled up and he says, you cannot tell it. And she goes, no. Can you tell us that child was alive or dead at the time that they were wrapped? No, I cannot. And just leave it like you're not bothered by it. But you see how it signals to the jury the issue even more, the problem even more, the unanswered question even more. And as the prosecutor, you get back up there and then you clean it all up and you have a field day wiping the floor with the defense cross-examination. I wish they should rehire me. I need to get back in there. All right. IGG Rock says, interesting. Do you think Dr. Dorinka didn't trust the prosecution or think they were doing a good job? No, I think she thought this woman killed her daughter is what I think. I think she thought, however, I think she thought she's not bothered by whether or not she was alive or dead before she was wrapped in plastic, because if she was alive, well, then the plastic and the tinfoil and the blanket and the trash can, you evil person, killed her. And if she was dead beforehand, there's no other reason other than the mother killed her. I think that is the answer she should have given. But she feels that she's sitting in the same room with the baby killer, and I think she allowed her feelings on that to start to drive her testimony. CJ says, is it better for experts on cross to answer yes or no? Should they elucidate? They should, but they should be clever about it. A great answer is, yes, but there's a reason why, or no, but I can explain, and leave it out there, leave it lingering that there's more to it, but the defense won't ask that question. The defense doesn't want to hear the reason. I mean, that's what jurors are paying attention to as much as we are, is who seems to be afraid of stuff here. And if the defense, if she's afraid of answering the question, that's a problem. But if she gives the answer and then says there's more to it and they don't ask the follow-up, then she's dared them. She's called their bluff and they haven't followed through on it. So anyhow, interesting stuff, interesting point in this case. This case, again, is heartbreaking to me. And I hope that justice is done here. in no way want you guys to go away from this thinking that, Josh thinks she's not guilty. It's not that I feel that way. And I feel that there's other evidence supporting a conviction in this case. It's just that on this issue, had they had the opportunity to do this over again, and I think even this doctor, had she had the opportunity to testify differently, might have. Is this the turning point? Is this the linchpin? I don't know. But in my view, it was incredibly important, probably more than the other testimony in the case. JC Broadway says, will she still get life if convicted of a lesser and all the other charges as well? I think she will get something close to it, but she won't get murder. And that's what this is. This is a murder case. Either way, you're right. All the lying to police, all of the desecration of a corpse, all of that other kind of stuff can add up, but it's really tail wagging the dog when it comes to why we're all talking about this. Evelyn Boswell, a beautiful baby girl, lost her life in one of the most horrific ways that you can possibly imagine. And somebody should pay for that. Katrina Bunny says, but don't you think the state's response to the defense closing will stick with them as they deliberate? I know it is for me. I felt some quick thoughts on the closing. I watched them. I thought the state's opening closing, I don't want to throw attorneys under the bus. I felt it seemed a little unprepared to me, a little lackluster, a little uninspiring. I felt that the defense closing was adequate. I felt that he became impassioned at points. He did something I thought was very disturbing, where he kept on referring to the baby as it. Leaves everybody in the room with a really bad taste. But the rebuttal closing by William Hopper, I thought was much better, and it concentrated on the prosecution's strengths, which are no one behaves this way. No one is this cold-hearted. No one cares this little. She is a liar. She has lied about everything, and now she's trying to continue to lie to you. And I felt that surrounding circumstances, consciousness of guilt, was the more powerful stuff, because end of the day, they do not have an answer to those questions about the how and the why. The how and the when, pardon me, which is a problem in this case. I mean, the point that the defense made on that sudden unexplained death in infants, the mere fact that that exists is a thing that he highlighted to jurors in closing statements, that is a thing. Will that rise to the level of doubt in their brains? I hope not. I do feel that a perfectly beautiful, healthy child that you're looking at right now doesn't just die, and a person who hides them and moves on with their life the way that they did probably had something to do with that. We'll just see if the jurors feel the same way. Anyhow, should we look at our poll, Kaylin? Let's take a look at our poll. I'm going to grab some coffee out of our beautiful Courtroom Confidential mug. 40% Donna Adelson. All right, let's talk about Donna. Poor Donna. Long story short, Donna wants out. Donna wants out. She does not enjoy jail. So a couple of things have happened recently, and none of it has really been decided just yet. But basically, her attorneys filed a motion based upon her medical issues, her injuries that she has received since she's been in jail, attacks that she's suffered from other inmates, extortion that she's been the victim of by other inmates. Basically, what it is other inmates. I don't even, they probably know who she is, but more than anything, they probably know she has money. And when that kind of an inmate is in prison, the other inmates are going to hustle the hell out of them for treats, is what it comes down to. We want more stuff out of the commissary. Buy me some more ramen noodles, or else. And so she's getting hustled that way is what it sounds like. But the ultimate kind of thing out of all of this is they're saying that because of the abuse, because of the threats, because of the noise, she can't sleep well. And because she can't sleep well, and because of her injuries, and because she can't hear correctly, she cannot assist in her own defense. And therefore, Judge, you need to grant her bail. I am willing to bet you that when they have these conversations with Donna, her attorneys, 98% of that conversation has to do with, you got to get me out of here. You got to get me out of here. I guarantee you. That's true. Hey, sweetie, this is prison. That is absolutely true. I guarantee you that as much as they want to talk about the evidence and the bump and the other witnesses who are going to flip and testify against her, and transcripts and everything else, telephone calls, geolocation, she's just saying, you got to get me out of here. I can't stand it. I can't stand the food. It's too loud. I can't sleep. These people are scary. Somebody bumped me the other day. Somebody grabbed my arm. You got to get me out of here. You got to get me out of here. You got to get me out of here. This motion, in my view, there's the footnote we'll add to this, was brought, I think, by her attorneys to shut her up. There's no chance I think she's getting out. There's no chance. They brought this up because if they didn't file this motion and explain to the judge all of the awful, horrible things that she has been suffering since she's been in jail, she would have fired him. She needed them to say this. The judge needs to hear her tales of woe. And so they filed this. This was a client management filing. This was, I don't think anybody believes they have a chance of actually winning this. This is a client management filing. And I think they said, fine, Donna, fine. If we file this and ask for you to get out, can we then talk about the evidence? It's also going to be part of what is called an Arthur hearing in Florida, where it's an argument for bail to be granted when you are on a bondless case or non-bondable case, which she is. This is a life case, no bond. I don't think she's winning any of that. But the other interesting thing that was filed was that the defense filed a motion to exclude the jail call from November 7th, 2023. This was when Charlie was in custody. Donna was still out, and she talked about how she's thinking about perhaps taking her own life or fleeing the country. I am really curious to see what arguments they're going to make about why that should be kept out, because that is a crucial, pivotal point. That is certainly consciousness of guilt, and no innocent person is talking about taking their own life or fleeing the country if they've got nothing to hide, and the prosecution is going to use that to their great benefit. And so that's the real meat and potatoes of what is coming up for Donna Adelson is, will that telephone call, jail call come in? I don't see a reason why it wouldn't. I don't see an argument to be made why it wouldn't. So I'm really interested to see what the defense actually tries to argue about that, because that is, like I said, this is going to be the biggest test yet for the prosecution, because you're just one more degree of separation away from the actual trigger men. But stuff like that, when you start talking like that on jailhouse recorded phone calls, you are burying yourself. So they're going to come back on February 26th for that hearing. Do we got any questions on that one? Kaylin, let me see if I'm missing anything. Krista Johnson says, do you think she's let out, she will flee? I think that's what the judge thinks. I think that, listen, lady, you were caught at the airport. I mean, how do you with a straight face, think about this, if you're her attorney, how do you with a straight face make the argument that she has no intent to flee when she was caught at the airport flying to Vietnam? And I believe she'd already researched extradition laws. Yeah, of course she's going to try to flee. She's got the means to do it. She doesn't have a passport, whatever else. I'm telling you, this type of a case, murder for hire, with all the bad people involved in this, and a person who's already demonstrated that they will flee, I don't think there's a chance that she will be granted any kind of bond in this case. Let's do one more, huh? Kaylin, do we have a runner-up before I get into our exciting announcement? Don't go anywhere, any guys, because we do have an exciting announcement that includes a giveaway. And so I want to tell you all about that, but let's cover one more case. Shanna Gardner, 30%. Good. I like the Shanna Gardner one. All right. Shanna Gardner is the woman out of Florida, again, Florida, who is accused with conspiring with her new husband, Mario Fernandez, to kill her prior husband. There's Mario and Shanna. Jared Bredigan. He was killed in an ambush in 2022. This was a really, it's an ambush. He's driving. They knew where he was driving. He's driving back home at a certain time. There's a tire in the middle of the road. He stops to get it out. He's gunned down, and his, I think, 4-year-old is still in the car and witnesses this and says something to the police when they respond about daddy fell down or daddy's sick. Just, again, a nightmarish type case. So anyhow, she's got a lot of money. She's got some high-priced attorneys. But the real reason this whole case got solved and got put together was because police, through some very good police work, I will go into more details on this at a later time, but if you want to know about the background of this case, we did one of our case notes episodes on this. So we'll put the link in the description for you guys. But we went into everything and all the investigation and how they put this case together. And it really is fascinating and good police work. But they were able to track down a man by the name of Henry Tenon. He's the trigger man. That's Henry. Henry turned state's evidence. He flipped, and he said he's going to testify against Shanna and Mario. Okay. But they had a January 13th status hearing, and Tenon is present in court in front of Judge London Kite. He asked the judge if he can say something. And this happens quite a bit in courts where you'll have these defendants who say, Your Honor, can I say something out loud? And then you see their defense attorney scramble. No. Tell me. He starts to do one of these kind of outbursts. Hey, can I say something? The judge says, he says, I just want to bring something to your attention that my testimony. She says, you need to speak to your attorney. She tells him, no. And then apparently the next words out of his mouth are false testimony, which, you can imagine the alarm bells that go off with everybody. So he goes back, has the conference with his attorney. His attorney, Alan Chipperfield, later says that he believes that another inmate somehow was influencing Tenon, and that he thinks that maybe one of the co-defendants got to another inmate and was now pressuring Tenon to say that there was that his testimony is false. At the end of that outburst, by the way, to add further turmoil to this whole thing and chaos, Tenon says that he wants a new attorney after his attorney shuts him up. So they have what's called a Nelson hearing. In California, it's called a Marsden hearing. These were one of my favorite hearings when I was a prosecutor because they would clear the entire room. So it was a chance for me to go outside the courtroom and check on email. But it's where in a court-appointed attorney situation, the defendant gets to rat on his, tell all the horrible things that his attorney did and why he should get a new attorney. That doesn't happen when you're privately retained because you just get fired. But when you're appointed by a taxpayer dime attorney, you have to explain to the judge why you want a new attorney and explain to the judge why your attorney's doing such a bad job. And they don't want that done in open court. So they'll clear the courtroom to do that. One last thing in this case is that the judge, because of this outburst and even the suspicion of perhaps false testimony, is going to has ordered all of the jailhouse calls from Henry Tenon to the outside world to be turned over to the defense attorneys. So they'll be able to go through that and try to see, is he telling anybody else this? Is he saying anything about his testimony and whether or not it's false? So the ultimate question, though, is what are the consequences of this? What is the fallout from this? Well, if he's totally recanting and saying they had nothing to do with it, I did this on my own, or I didn't shoot anybody, I'm just, whatever it is, a total recanting of his testimony, then that's chaos in all capitals. Okay, that's major problems for the prosecution, because like I said, he was the centerpiece to their investigation and also likely going to be the centerpiece to their prosecution at trial. If he's partially recanting, in other words, saying, I said some of what I said is true and some is not so true, and I want to take back some of that, still chaos, just with less yelling. Because again, this is one of those witnesses where his credibility is squarely at issue. The defense is going to call him liar, liar, pants on fire. That's their whole defense, is this, you cannot believe this guy because he's a liar who lies. And he's got all sorts of motivations. This is Baez. He's likely going to be the one to cross-examine him. And now if it comes out that he's saying that even hinted at the idea of false testimony, and this is something that the court allows in, this statement that he made or whatever else comes of this whole thing, Baez is going to have a field day with this guy. And this is the one witness you don't want to have that problem with as a prosecutor. You're already going to have problems with him. He's already got a criminal record. He's already an admitted killer himself. He's already getting a deal. There's already problems with his credibility to begin with, but most stuff that you can handle as a prosecutor. But if this includes the guy at one point saying he's giving false testimony or has given false testimony or has changed his story even just a little bit, then it's liar, liar all day long from the defense, and you cannot believe this guy. And if that's what they're going to put him on, that's what they're going to center the case around, they're going to have a real bad time as the prosecution. Nature Girl says, isn't that perjury? No, because he has not given sworn testimony that I'm aware of yet. I don't believe he's testified at any kind of a hearing where he was put under oath. I think what he was really indicating is that what he has told police and everyone is false testimony. I could be wrong. If you guys know more about if he has actually done like a grand jury or something, then that could be a problem. I feel like I should know that, but that's a great question. All right. Shall we talk about all the fun stuff that we have coming up and our super, super fun giveaway? Let's do that. First, we have a bunch of new members. You guys, please stick with me because I want to thank all of the new members. We are blown away by the support. So here's just a quick shout out to KLB, Golden Girl, Monica C, Kimbers, Ohio, Tisha S, Jennifer Juniper, Crawl Angle, Bug Duggar, DSN, Steel and Stitches, Elf, Nikki Zabiz, Angelique, Lisa Campbell, Amina Gen X, Debbie W, and Denise Feldman, Ersland. You guys are all fantastic, but you're only the part of it because it also is Josh Hutchins, Kathy Davidson, Samantha Terry, Jen Pokey, Carrie RH, Krista OG, Pamela the Camel, I Rescue Dogs, Melissa Filson, Adam Nusk, Sinbad 33, Heather Lee, Glinda, parentheses, The Good Witch, Pauline, Stephanie, Katie Bug, Red Pen, and as of today, Mandy. You guys are all absolutely fantastic. Oh, and Jody, thank you so much for gifting 5 of those memberships. So, and Teresa Clay for becoming a new member, and Best Nancy for gifting a membership. All right, let me get into what you missed Can you guys hear me? We had a total power outage, and our whole Wi-Fi just went out. I'm gonna shoot through this really quick because I'm doing this through my phone. But everything good, Kaylin? You hearing this? Okay. I think I got out all the thanks to everybody. We got so many members. We broke the internet. We broke our electricity around here. You guys are fantastic for sticking with me, though. All right. Here are the details of the giveaway. This Sunday, we're doing another episode of our Sunday Fun Day. It's been fantastic. We love it. The response has been great for everybody. One of the things we do on Sunday Fun Day is that we take calls. You leave us a message on our website. If you go to The Courtroom Confidential, I'm going to pull this up for you guys really quick. If you go to thecourtroomconfidential.com, I feel like I'm tempting fate here by even trying to get fancy. If you go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on this button here, send us a voice message. You can leave us a voice message. They've been great. We've been getting amazing questions, amazing comments. We love the questions because we answer them all on Sunday, and it's a fantastic time. Ask the folks who've been there. Leave us a message. And hate to pump you guys for this, but follow us on Facebook, and you can find out where to follow us on Facebook still from the website. If you just go down to the bottom and click on our Facebook icon, because we're trying to get enough members to actually enough followers on Facebook to actually start streaming on Facebook. So for those two reasons, just leave us a voice message, follow us on Facebook, and we will pick at random a winner to win. What are the giveaways again? We are going to be giving away a sweatshirt, either a hoodie or like this crew neck sweatshirt, plus a mug like this mug, and a tote bag that is not for sale. So that is all yours. The reason for this is the Courtroom Confidential, thanks to all of you guys and for your support, is turning 1 year old next week or later this week. We're excited. We're thrilled. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for the support. I see Recovery Addict in the chat. Thank you for sticking with me. This is why I need you here to help me with all the tech. I don't know if you can stop the electricity from getting shut off, but this has been a wild year. We started this out having no idea that it would turn into what it has turned into. And it's all because of you guys. So we wanted to, in a small way, in the way that we can, just thank you guys. So please join us on Sunday. Leave us a voice message. Follow us on Facebook. We will be picking somebody at random and sending you this wonderful kind of thank you package. But we really, really thank you all. You guys are fantastic. I'm not going to push fate any longer and keep us here any longer. Thank you all for spending some time with me on a Wednesday. Did I get to thank everybody for everything that all the gifts and things? I think I did. So you're all fantastic. Have a wonderful meeting. Diana Mayer, one more to go out on. Thank you for becoming a member. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, everybody. Take care.